Hi guys, TKN here. So I was going to clock off this weekend for that little known holiday known as Christmas, but I feel that this story should be covered. Some of you who have watched my monthly news roundup for December 2021, or at least the first part of it, will know that I reported on Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, which of course is since released via the Epic Games Store. Now for those of you who don't know, I live in the UK, so my time zones are probably a bit different to yours, but when I woke up, I saw on Twitter that Final Fantasy was trending, and I thought it might be related to Final Fantasy XIV, maybe some bug fixes or more solutions to the server congestion that currently plagues Endwalker. It turned out it wasn't that, it actually related to the PC port of Intergrade, or more specifically the problems with it as highlighted by Digital Foundry. I dove a bit deeper and there are certainly issues there, that's undeniable, but I think they're a bit overblown if I'm honest. Nonetheless, I wanted to get this out to you guys to give you a rundown as to what is wrong with it and whether it would be worth your money if you're considering an early Christmas gift. Before we push into the technical deficiencies, let's go over the precursors before it even released. Initially, the exclusivity to the Epic Games Store. There is a wide consensus that the platform is inferior to its main competitor in Steam. I mean, these guys have only recently come up with the novel and innovative idea of a shopping cart, and that still has issues. It shows how far away from a user-friendly interface they truly are when simple concepts like this have taken so long to be added in the first place. Long story short, being forced to use a platform that is woefully lacking compared to its contemporaries is already a red flag. Then you consider the price. $70, £70, I'm going to stick with pounds sterling since I'm a Brit, but the reality is that the price increase for PS5 games has been translated over to PC as well, and no matter how you look at it, regardless of the enhanced form, this is still a game that released a year and a half back. There's not really a justifiable reason why it should be at this price. There was even a moment where before its launch, the price was removed from the Epic Games Store only to be added back later. Whether that's part of their processes as a means of finalising information before release or simply to avoid negative press, who knows, but it's not exactly a good look for Square that they even considered to price it as high as they did. However, if the port itself was optimised, if it was the best form of Intergrade available as it should be, then people might forgive and forget and just enjoy what is a stellar game at its core. The reality is that a fair number of PC gamers will have girthy setups, hardware that is going to push a game to its technical limits, and the promise of 4K and 120 FPS were notable features of this port. Needless to say, some who experienced it were not impressed with the game, even branding this as the worst AAA port they have seen in a long time. Now, I will say that I think this statement is exaggerated, as when you think of the worst ports, you immediately think of hard crashes, performance issues that make the game virtually unplayable, or game-breaking bugs. I was expecting something along the lines of Cyberpunk 2077 bad, but this is not really at that level. I think the main issue here is the price and the exclusivity to the Epic Games Store. Players are rightly expecting a game that is free of these issues that we're about to discuss, but they're not game-breaking by any means. So let's dive into those. Alexander Battaglia of Digital Foundry, who basically provide in-depth technical analysis of games like this, saw a problem almost immediately. The pre-rendered cutscenes, which you know are pretty integral to your heavily cinematic game, were stuttering from the off, which naturally is a bad sign, and it acted as precursor to the deeper issues as well. When you actually get into the gameplay, it's arguably worse. Simply panning the camera in a relatively static environment with no action occurring causes frame rate drops which, for some reason, isn't picked up by conventional stress testing methods like RTSS. Here's an example of the performance issues by Miss My Friends, who was running the game on a high-end setup.
Looks like Wymer was right about here. The watch is saying they're gonna step up their game.
So they blew up a reactor.
Hey, what are you doing in there?
Come on out.
Another day.
It is definitely noticeable, there is no denying that. As for Alex himself, if you had any doubts that he was running on a low-end PC, then that doubt is alleviated with this image. You can see he's using an RTX 3090 plus a high-end CPU, and he was still experiencing problems in 1080p, not even in 4K. When you consider the recommended benchmark to run the PC port is a 1080, you've got a problem if a card a couple of generations down the line is supposedly struggling. However, I feel it's also worth looking at the other side of the coin. I've talked with friends who are playing the game currently on lower end graphics cards, stuff like 1080 Ti's, and I've seen a few comments on forums from others too who state that their experiences are far better. So is it possible that the port simply has more issues with higher end setups? I feel this is something you'll need to look into yourself to make a judgment here. The way I see it though is that it's certainly not as horrid as articles make it out to be. However, what isn't excusable are the limited graphical options for what should be a version with the most wiggle room. Standard elements that you would expect in a PC port like variable FPS rate and resolution scaling control are just not there. You can see in this image that you can only set the FPS limit in fixed intervals as an example. For other missing features, modders have already got involved to try and alleviate some of the issues. For example, dynamic resolution, which is the method by which some games maintain a smooth frame rate during more action-packed sequences, couldn't be disabled in this port. The modders had to provide that themselves. And apparently they've been doing even more work following this. And yes, it's great that modders are taking the time to sort it out themselves, but really this is a poor showing from Square. They shouldn't have to depend on others to fix their game for them. And when you consider that the likes of Kingdom Hearts 3 that's also released this year on PC has all of the options you would expect, you have to conclude that Square have mildly botched what should have been the definitive version of this title. And that's made potentially worse when you consider Square's poor track record with PC ports post-release. Think back to Nier Automata, which took years to fix. And then you naturally have to think, is it going to take them just as long to fix the issues here, especially when they're already working on the next game in the Final Fantasy VII Remake saga? In its current state though, is Intergrade really the worst AAA port seen in a long time? I'm not an expert on this by any means from a technical standpoint, I can only go off what I see, but from footage I've watched, articles I've read and comments I've perused over, it doesn't seem nearly as bad as people are making it out to be. At worst I'd say it's lazy, but I think what's exaggerated the situation is the price of the game, which admittedly is a joke. It's not entitled to expect a top tier experience free of these issues for the price that you're paying in regards to a game that is over a year and a half old. But on the other side of the spectrum, considering there are PC ports that have been literally unplayable on day one in the past, you could do far worse than this.